Salt hung in the air like a memory that refused to leave. Every day since he had been taken on as an apprentice, Niall Kavanagh tasted it the moment he opened the doors of Whelan and Sons boatyard and stepped onto the warped decking that overlooked the North Atlantic. His master, Aidan Whelan, insisted that an honest boat could be told from the rest by the salt that settled into the grain. Maybe that was true, but Niall also suspected the smell of fresh pine shavings, the clang of hand-forged nails, and the clamour of gulls mattered just as much. It was after one of those gulls dropped something on the roof, the rattle like hail on corrugated tin, that Niall first saw the driftwood mast. Aidan grumbled about needing the apprentice on the lofting floor, but the old man allowed Niall to climb a ladder and clear the debris. There, nestled in a crease of the tarred roof, lay a cracked length of pale wood, no taller than Niall. Made useless for sailing, perhaps, but once part of a mast nonetheless. When he brought the timber down for inspection, Aidan took one glance and lost his irritation, the lines of his weathered face softening to wonder. "We'll let it dry," he said. "Might be good for a bowsprit model or a tiller handle. Lord knows decent hardwood is dear these days." Niall set it near the casting stove, and that should have been the end of it. Yet a week later, when he took up a rasp to smooth an uneven edge, sunlight slanted through the open bay door and struck the wood just so. Grooves emerged, spirals and sharp angles like claw marks. The young man leaned closer. The carvings ran against the grain in a purposeful design, hidden until the timber had dried, the salt leached away. He traced the pattern with a fingertip. The symbols reminded him of the iron plaques at the Glen Darragh standing stones, runes older than Christian graves. Niall had studied them in school and lingered over the museum displays in Dunlay. He fetched a graphite stick and copied the markings onto a scrap of vellum. That evening he spread the rubbing across his attic table and opened dusty language atlases. Most nights Niall's eyes ached after 10 hours in the boatyard. Tonight they shone, fevered by the mystery. One shape looked like K, another like F, Elder Futhark definitely. He assembled tentative translations, KOFARD, an arrangement that meant nothing. But if he reversed the runs that faced left, remembering how some Viking stones read Bostrophodon, alternating directions, he got FORDAK, Fordak, a place, a surname. He pressed on until the candle burned low and the freezing window misted. The next row of runes was clearer. SINNE, Fordax Sinner. Fordax Sin. He slept poorly, woke early, and cycled to the city library when first light broke. Their microfilm reels held ship manifests, because Dunley had been a busy port 2 centuries ago. Niall scanned until he found it. The Fordak, a 3-masted bark scuttled off Cape Wrath in 1842 during a storm. 41 souls lost, cargo unknown. Unknown. That word clung to him. He jotted references, packed his knapsack, and went straight from the library to the Dunlay Maritime Museum. Leah Heron, the head curator, had addressed his school class once, speaking of salt-caked sextants retrieved from wrecks. She was exacting, sharp, and beloved by sailors who felt their ancestors' stories were safe in her archives. Niall, cheeks wind-bitten, showed the charcoal rubbing. Leah guided him past the figureheads to a private reading room. "This is extraordinary," she murmured. "We have nothing from the Fordak besides a single manifest entry and a rumour that she carried Baltic amber for an English broker." She pulled a folio from a locked cabinet, her private notes, perhaps, and compared scrawling on aged parchment to his rubbing. "Same hand," she whispered. "Same chisel angle." Niall expected excitement, but what coloured her face was unease. She folded the rubbing, pressed it back into his palm. "Leave this matter alone," she said. "Ships vanish. Their ghosts deserve rest." There the conversation ended. She ushered him out, locked the door behind him, and never again answered his calls. 2 days later, the evening news reported Leah Heron's death. The curator had been found on the museum's top floor, neck broken at the foot of the spiral staircase. Police suggested she fell during after-hours cataloguing. The archivist who discovered her stated that several drawers in the runic collection were open, contents strewn across the floor. Aidan found Niall staring at the silent television above the pub bar, pint untouched. "Come home, lad," the master said. "You look hunted." In the boatyard workshop, Niall uncovered the mast, heart hammering. What had Leah feared? If she was murdered, someone wanted what the runes revealed. He decided not to involve Aidan. The old man had lost a son at sea, and didn't deserve more grief. Niall carried the mast into the back shed, propped it against a beam, and began photographing each carved segment under lamplight. The runes circled the shaft, so deciphering required a full rotation. While he worked, rain lashed the tin roof and hissed promises of storms. Line 3 read GULD gold. Line 4 BEGRAVEN, buried. Buried gold? Typical legend fare. Yet Toyota hadn't existed in 1842, amber was rumoured, but what did buried gold have to do with a mast afloat 180 years? Line 5 completed the riddle, NTREMILERS. The arrow loop rune meant turn back, he recalled. Turn back 9 miles. He drew a crude chart. The foredeck likely sank 10 nautical miles from Cape Wrath. 9 miles back along her last tack would place her near Duncairn, a rocky islet. But why carve instructions on a mast? Unless it was never meant to sail. Unless someone planned that mast to detach, survive storms, drift ashore, and deliver a caution or map long after the wreck went under. A thud outside made him kill the light. He listened. Only rain. When he resumed, he missed his step, and the mast toppled. As it hit the floor, a hollow clack sounded, wood over void. He pried at a seam that appeared where a carving line split. The end cap, once tar-sealed, came free to reveal a cavity within. Something metallic clinked inside. From it, he slid a tube wrapped in oilcloth, sealed with pitch. Inside, a rolled parchment, waterproofed by age, displayed a diagram of the foredeck's hold. Deck levels, crate positions, and a star marking one cell, CT-73. In the margin, inked in a different hand, 3 words, 5 Kings share. He didn't sleep. Dawn bled across the estuary while he sifted maritime history websites. 5 Kings share belonged to Campion and Trask, a 19th century consortium accused of smuggling Prussian gold across Ireland to finance private armies during the Schleswig Wars. Charges never stuck. Their ledgers vanished. So the foredeck carried contraband gold for a shadowy league. Someone in 1842 inserted a map in a hollow mast, hoping it would wash ashore if the vessel was lost. Perhaps the mast floated from the wreck only after recent storms dislodged it from sandbanks. Leah must have known. Maybe she'd found other clues, and when Niall showed her his rubbing, realised the pieces matched. She'd tried to warn him. Now she was dead. Niall turned off his monitor. The tide would be high at 4, moon waning. He took the mast map, sealed it in plastic, packed a waterproof torch, flares, and the small fowling pistol Aidan kept for gulls. He launched the yard's skiff alone. Aidan wouldn't hear. He slept heavy, and the engine coughed softly enough under the roar of wind. Whitecaps peppered the estuary. Niall adjusted throttle, scanning for harbour patrol. No one sane sailed before sunrise. Lightning stitched the western horizon as he cleared the breakwater. Duncairn's silhouette rose ahead, black against pale dawn. He tied off at a kelp-slick rock and hauled himself upward. The islet was barren, save for gull nests and a stone cairn giving the place its name. But Niall wasn't here for monuments. The map showed coordinates, depth 18 fathoms, bearing northeast from the islet's tip. He studied his compass, then set anchor at the approximate spot. He had no diving gear, only a grapple, but the sonar fish finder he borrowed from Aidan might detect a wreck elevation. The screen pinged irregular masses, then a rectangular outline 20 meters long. The foredeck, or part of her. His grapple snagged immediately. He winched, expecting seaweed, but up came a rotten crate corner. Inside, seawater hardened canvas and a corroded bronze plate stamped CT 73. He cut through the canvas. No gold glimmered, only silt. But buried in the sludge lay 5 cylindrical moulds, gold ingots, dull under centuries of salt, yet unmistakable. Enough wealth to buy half the coast. A shout startled him. 2 men stood on Duncairn's ridge, silhouettes against the lightning glow. One waved a pistol, the other lifted a bullhorn. Leave it, step away. Niall's skiff lay moored but vulnerable. He hurled canvas and ingots into a locker, started the outboard. A shot cracked, splintering the bow. He ducked and punched throttle. The skiff surged, bullets plinked water. He swerved behind a basalt spur, then cut engine and crouched, breath ragged. The men scrambled down the islet's flank, cursing. One boarded an inflatable dinghy hidden in a tidal channel. Niall restarted his motor. The chase began. The sky brightened, revealing a slalom of wave troughs. Niall opened full throttle. His pursuer's craft had twin engines and closed distance fast. At this speed, any hit would hole his fiberglass. He scanned for advantage, rocks, shoals, anything. A memory flickered. The old buoy line marking the abandoned mussel farm, its guide cables still strung a foot below surface. Locals avoided the snare, but outsiders wouldn't know. If he could thread between markers. He veered starboard, foam spraying. The pursuers mimicked his turn, engines roaring. Niall lined up on 2 faded buoys, hoped the cable still held, and raced through. He heard a metallic twang. The dinghy's port engine ripped off, somersaulting. The craft spun, passengers flung like ragdolls into surf. He didn't wait to see if they surfaced. He limped the skiff toward the boatyard, engine sputtering from the earlier shot. Sun breached clouds as he cleared the breakwater, its light hauntingly serene compared to the chaos behind him. Aidan waited on the pier, shotgun in hand, eyes aflame with worry. Guard called, said someone took the skiff, thought you'd drowned. Then he noticed the bullet hole. Holy Mary, what have you done? Niall dragged the crate onto the pier and opened it. Gold caught the dawn and painted Aidan's astonishment. Words spilled in a torrent. Fordak, map, murder. Aidan listened, not interrupting until the end. We go to Garda, the old man said. Now. But the men. Exactly. We can't fight thieves with a dinghy and a rabbit gun. Minutes later, Detective Inspector Marie Dunford examined the ingots in the Garda Station evidence bay and took Niall's statement. She noted every rune rubbing, every time-stamped photo on his phone, and bagged the Masts' hollow cap. I know the museum case, she told him. Heron's autopsy suggests she was struck before falling. No weapon recovered. Your story dovetails. She placed the rubbed vellum on a light table. You say Leah warned you. She feared someone inside the museum circle, someone who knew her research and wanted the treasure. That fits. Who? Niall asked. Cecil Morton, visiting antiquities scholar, Dunford answered. British specialises in early runic texts. He and Heron argued loudly the morning she died, according to staff. He disappeared the same night. Niall's heart hammered anew. Morton could be one of the men at Duncairn, and still alive. A radio squawk interrupted. Coastguard picked up an SOS 6 miles off Cape Wrath, an overturned inflatable with one survivor clinging to wreckage, identifying himself as Dr. Cecil Morton, claiming piracy. Dunford smiled thinly. We'll see who robbed whom. 3 days later, the national papers ran the headline. Curator's murder solved, smuggling treasure recovered after 180 years. Details remained hazy to protect investigation integrity, but locals knew enough. They toasted Niall's name in pubs where stories flowed freer than pints. Yet fame unsettled him. He retreated to Whelan and Sons, sanding a skiff's gunwale as gulls screeched overhead. Dunford visited, coat flapping in seaside wind. Morton confessed, she said. Heron discovered his intention to retrieve the gold and confronted him. He pushed her. Who was the second man? Dutch salvage diver named Roma. Morton paid him. Roma drowned when your cable sheared their engine and the boat capsized. Will I be charged? For defending yourself? She shook her head. You saved historical treasure and solved a murder. The state owes you thanks, not reprimand. Then the gold. We'll finance the new regional maritime wing. Heron's dream. Her family requested you cut the ribbon. Weeks passed. Spring warmed the bay, and the museum reopened with banners edged in navy blue. A glass case displayed the driftwood mast, split to show its hidden cavity. Another contained the gold ingots, each labelled 5 Kings' share. At the ceremony, Niall spoke briefly, palms sweating. Leah Heron taught us that objects aren't merely things, he said. They're messages from those who came before. We're the ones who must listen. Applause rose like surf. Aidan beamed. Dunford tipped her cap. Later, after crowds dispersed, Niall lingered by the mast. Through the skylight, sunlight struck the carvings. He noticed a final rune at the base, half obscured by a knot previously overlooked. He fetched a magnifying glass, leaned in, and smiled. It was the rune for hope. Message received, he whispered, and walked back to the harbour where new masts waited to be born.